Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. I am Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Going to talk today about how Ford panders to the ultra elite with a new business model. We're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about how a bonkers EV Lotus crashed in the first few seconds of the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And we're going to talk about why that happened. And in the second half of the show, I have two very special guests joining me to talk all about off-road recovery. This is really exciting. Matt and Kimi from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery are going to join the show, and we're going to have a fantastic discussion that if you are on the trails, if you like off-roading, if you're just a casual off-roader, you don't want to miss any of this. It could be information that saves your life. So we're going to get to all of that and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I might look a little more sleep-deprived than usual because I have been working long nights on the S2000, getting the K24 swap into the car and ready to go. The whole motor's all bolted together. It's on the subframe, transmission, that's all there. And now all that OBD1 Kenobi and I have to do, and more or less all that OBD1 Kenobi has to do is work on the wiring. We're working on building a custom wiring harness for it while it's still sitting on the subframe on the ground instead of trying to do that in the car, which is totally doable, but it's easier this way. So I've been going and working on that till the wee hours of the morning every day, and it's basically ready to go. We just got to put that harness on there, put it in, and then there is a possibility that it doesn't blow up on my first track day. There is a possibility that it works. We shall find out. And, of course, if I actually spent as much time working on my own cars as I do talking about them here on the radio show, I actually might have some decent cars. But, that's not going to happen. So anyway, now we've got a bit of a heat wave rolling into most of the United States. We're seeing temperatures nearing 100 degrees here in Colorado Springs. We're talking 97, 98, 99 degrees. And that's not, we get the hot days here in the summer here in Colorado. We are technically an arid desert, by the way, technically speaking. So kind of like New Mexico, kind of like Arizona, but not as drastic as that. But we're getting some hot weather here. And this comes by way of some national park officers. You might get a kick out of this when you say, yeah, I could fry an egg on the dashboard of my car. It's so hot. Well, maybe not an egg. Well, you probably could fry an egg on here. But how about banana bread? In Arizona, Seguro National Park, probably mispronouncing that, park officials are making some rounds on social media because they put up a Facebook post of them actually baking banana bread. Legitimate banana bread. You get it ready, you get it in the little pan and ready to go. And by the way, we're talking banana bread with chocolate chips in it. The good stuff. So they put that in there, and 97 degrees, by the way, was the ambient temperature. And they put the bread on the dash, I was going to say in the oven, on the dash at 11 a.m. and left it until 2 p.m. Within an hour, the dashboard itself reached 200 degrees and topped out after a few hours at 211 degrees. And that's just shy of actually boiling water. So, you could cook an egg on there. You could boil some water, perhaps, or banana bread. Now, that being said, the banana bread, if you follow the instructions, who follows instructions, right? No, I'm sure the people who actually like baking do. 350 degrees is the temperature that you typically want for this type of banana bread. But if you're willing to wait a little longer, 211 degrees does just fine and cooks the banana bread. Maybe it's not as good as if you did it in the oven. But that being said, if we had the dashboard temperature be 350 degrees, there would probably be other problems. Namely, the dashboard would melt and everything in your car would melt and it would suck. And you would have banana bread and a bunch of squishy interior car plastic. So anyway, glad it's not that hot. But with this, that does mean that, it's kind of a PSA here. Some sensible safety advice. You definitely don't want to leave kids, dogs, any creatures of any type. I'm categorizing kids as creatures too, but you don't want to leave any creatures in general in the vehicle when the temps are this high. Yeah, I know Teslas have dog mode where it runs the AC. I don't know. When you are talking about just that UV, that sunlight coming through the dashboard and getting it that hot, I don't know if even just running the AC for the dog in there is enough. I really don't. I wouldn't chance it. That's what I'm saying, is I would not chance it. Also, as a note from a car enthusiast, I can tell you all of my crusty old cars have terrible crusty dashboards. It's horrible. My AE86, just like every AE86 currently in existence with an original dashboard, it is cracked to oblivion. And that's just something you accept as an old Toyota owner, right? Well, you can do some small part in preventing that. If you've got a car, throw a sunshade up. Really. Over time, especially here in Colorado, we're high altitude. So the intensity of that UV, the ultraviolet light from the sun, is much greater here at these higher altitudes. And we get sun damage on vehicles a lot faster here. So I would say, hey, throw that sunshade up. It takes you 2 seconds to do every time you park that car. And hopefully you keep those dash temps from getting so high that it causes the breakdown of the plastic and the vinyls and the materials in there. And then you in a few years have a cracked dashboard or a warped dashboard. It can all happen. So anyway, there you go. It's going to be hot this weekend. We're going to keep seeing high temps all across the country. And whatever you do, make some banana bread on your dashboard. And don't leave your dogs or your kids in the car. That's a bad idea, because we're talking bad things there. But do make the banana bread. I think this is with the chocolate chips, you can't forget those. So before we wrap things up here on this segment, remember, we've got some really exciting guests coming on to the show. We've got Matt and Kimi from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery coming on to the show to talk about four-wheeling, being safe, and all of the above. I got to talk real quick about Ford. Ford has the Mustang GTD, which is the super expensive $325,000 Mustang. And you're saying there's a Mustang that's $325,000? There is, and it's basically just a factory race car at this point. It doesn't share a lot with the actual regular Mustang. And it has 800 horsepower. Hardcore Mustang fans love this thing. It is the ultimate Mustang. Yeah, you talk about your Shelby Cobras and all of that. No, that pales in comparison to this. You might put down more power to the wheels, but this is a prepped race car, a GT spec type of race car that you can just buy. And again, it's expensive. It's not cheap. But Ford knows that people who buy these cars are probably not actually going to take them racing, and they're going to want to go to supercar concours and all sorts of things with their Mustang, which, I don't know, when you spend this much money on a Mustang, yeah, it's cool. It's cool if you're a car guy. But let's be real. You go to your fancy supercar concours, and you're there with Ferraris and high-end Porsches, and you've spent about the same amount of money. No one's really going to know that your fancy Mustang with a big wing is the special one, unless they're Mustang people or they're car folks in general. So, but they are doing something, because, rich folks have to do something to be different. And you have all the money in the world to spend on a car. And so any car, doesn't really matter how rare the car is. Someone else is going to have one. You want something, if you are absolutely overflowing with cash. Must be nice, by the way. You want something special to go with that. And I'm going to tell you here in just a minute how Ford has a marketing strategy that maybe will just work with people who, have more money than brains. We'll get to that after the break. And we're talking to Matt and Kimi from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
Transmissions. Shift.
And that was how things work with an engineer. More of How Things Work can be found at facebook.com/automotive-ADHD.
Hey, those car sounds. Oh, wait. They're still going. Oh, yeah. Ethan Hunter at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Very good stuff. If you want to check out my interview with Ethan, you can do that. Just look up this show wherever fine podcasts and, well, you know, this one are downloaded. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all of the places there. Go find it, and you can see it on video as well on YouTube. And had a great chat with Ethan from the Hill Climb, and it was he did a great job, and he had like 3 weeks to prepare. He was on the wait list, and they told him last minute, hey man, you're in. So if you want to hear that story, go check it out on the podcast. So we're coming off of the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb here. It's been a few weeks now. I had some amazing coverage. Again, not just with Ethan Hunter, but we had Jimmy Ford on. We broadcast live from the Fan Fest. It was really special. If you're just joining the show now and you missed all of that, go back and check it out. It's really cool. But now we're also getting into more summer hill climb action, specifically the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And Goodwood happens every year and is always a source for cool and interesting cars. I think a lot of manufacturers tend to bring interesting cars out to Goodwood as a showcase to show them off. And Goodwood's not, of course, on a mountain at 14,000 feet. I'm just saying the one we got here is better. I'm kidding. But it's exciting, and it's always something that motoring fans have to look forward to. Anytime you got a cool event like this, and you're a motorist, you're a car guy, you're a racing fan, it's great to have it. The more the merrier. But before the break, I was talking about Ford and the interesting option they have on the Mustang GTD, which the Mustang GTD is not your regular Mustang. It's $325,000 and is ultra fancy, you could say. It's a GT race car for the road, and it shares not that many parts with your regular Mustang. It's kind of its own thing, but it looks like a Mustang, drives a lot like probably the best Mustang ever. I will say that. But that being said, at $325,000, you are limited to the realm of the very wealthy. Now, granted, $325,000 is not crazy expensive when you look at some Ferrari models, some Lamborghinis, Porsches, things like that. They can go well beyond that, double that, triple that. But let me just say it this way. If you're cross-shopping a C8 Corvette and a Mustang, this isn't the Mustang you're typically looking at, okay? This one's not. And as a result, though, Ford wants to do something special for the idle rich, for the people who have more money than brains. They have 6 color options that are standard, okay? So they've got 6 color options, but this is, dare I say, marketing genius. They have the extended color palette, which adds 1,400 available colors. Not quite Porsche's paint-to-match color scheme, but 1,400 colors, and I would be hard-pressed to name 20. So there's a lot of colors in here, but here's either you can call it something incredibly absurd for the idle rich or something genius on the behalf of Ford, which is they have a exclusive extended color palette lockout option, which means if you do have more money than brains, you can say, I'm going to go for the extended 1,400 color palette. I'm going to go for that, but I'm going to pay extra to be the only person with this color that I pick off of the color palette. And then Ford will say, you paid extra for that. We will take that color off of the market. It's just you and you alone. And that way, when you take this to Cars and Coffee, you can say, yeah, my car is a one of one in this color. Yeah, it's Corvette guys, I think, not so much Mustang guys who do this. Oh, my Corvette was one of 3 made in this year at this time at this plant with this option. And then they go through all these incredible mental hoops and gymnastics to validate how they have a 1 of 3 car, how their car's truly a 1 of 1, when it's just a random option package with a certain color that no one really liked. But, hey, it is what it is, right? You can brag about whatever you want about your car. It's your car. You can do that. But this is, I will almost say, I think as an enthusiast personally, I wouldn't care all that much about it. And at a car at this price point, I feel like, a car with this capability, I feel like I would want to drive that thing and drive it on the racetrack. It is basically a prepped Ford race car from the factory, and I would want to drive it on the track. And what happens on the track is rock chips and all these other issues. And I would personally go out on a limb and probably vinyl wrap it just to give it a little bit of protection. And then I can make it whatever freaking color I want. And then who cares? Okay, I got a less desirable spec of the car because no one wanted this color. Okay, cool, I'll buy it, and then I'll make it the color I want. Now, obviously, you have the option to do a clear bra, as they call it in the industry, a clear film over the entire car, which can obviously protect it from rock chips and things like that, too. But I don't know. I'm not the sort of guy that gets hung up too much on car colors, especially rare, exotic car colors. But again, I'm not the target demographic for this Mustang, because am I walking up to a Ford dealership to put an allocation down on one of these at $325,000 plus options plus dealer markups? No, I am not the intended buyer of this car. So you know what? To the right buyer, this makes sense. Ford, good on you for figuring out how to make some more money out of painting cars a certain color, because they can paint them any color they want. But they're saying, you are rich and you want to be exclusive, so we will paint it this color, and for a fee, we won't let anyone else have the color. We'll throw the paint away. So I wonder what happens if you scratch it and you need to replace that color. If something happens to it, I'm sure they maybe they do something for you, especially when you're spending this kind of money on a car. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I'm not walking into the dealership to buy one of these anytime soon. I would like to be, but I'm not. Instead, I'm sitting here on the radio talking to you, which is nearly as good. So now another thing I got to talk about that also happened at the Goodwood hill climb this year. This is something a little bit different. So you have you have all these tremendous race cars. You have manufacturers bringing out all of this cool and interesting stuff. The Ford Mustang GTD being one of those cars. And the Lotus has brought out another vehicle that, well, it unfortunately crashed within the first few seconds of the race. The first few seconds, which that can't look good as a driver. But I'm going to tell you why it probably wasn't the driver. Here, I'm going to roll a video clip. If you're listening on the radio or the podcast, I'll walk you through what's happening. But I'm going to roll this video clip here, and you can hear some of the commentators saying what they say about it too, and I'll kind of follow up and elaborate on what they have to say.
Now, though, that Avaya X, the Lotus, which had the damage, we're going to see what happens. So it was off the start line, and it looked a little bit off kilter to begin with. Huge.
He's pulling off, bunch of smoke,
that Avaya X, and then
straight into the hay bales.
Remnants of it once the smoke clears. The driver out of the car, we saw him get out, and here we go. Oh,
yeah. This
into the hay bales.
Tricky, because what's happening is you've got 4 electric motors, and trying to manage them with a computer, when you get a big burnout like that, it's computer software issue. This one isn't drive error. There's something happened with the power going to the individual wheels that has spat him off there.
Okay, that's really interesting to know, actually. So I'm sure the driver will be relieved to hear that too. But that is
So if you're just joining me on the radio, what happened there is he took off, and in the first few feet, the car veered hard to the right. He took off in a plume of smoke. Now, bear in mind, this is an electric car. And he takes off in this plume of smoke and careens straight for the barrier, the hay bales, and all of that, and obliterates the front of this car. And it, from first glance, looked like the driver lost control of the car, but I don't think that's the case. With this Lotus, you have, and I'm going to butcher the name of it, Evija, Evija, yeah, that, whatever you just thought in your head, that's how the car's pronounced, because I'll take flack for it no matter how I pronounce this car. But what you've got with this is you have a 100% electric car, essentially. It's 2,000 horsepower, by the way. This is a tremendously powerful car. And electric motors are capable of putting that 2,000 horsepower down and all of that torque down instantly. They are capable of doing that very quickly. And what you have, though, is you have multiple motors. And on a vehicle like this, you know, you might have a Tesla dual motor. You've got a motor in the front and a motor in the back, and they've got axle shafts that come off the front of the motor on the left and right side, and that motor drives the front wheels, and then the other one drives both back wheels. On these crazy powerful hypercars, a lot of times what you find is there's one motor for each wheel. And this is, you see where this is going already. It's a pretty simple explanation, which is you need, if you're launching and you want the car to go in a straight line, you need each electric motor to operate at the same speed. If you've got, you know, X amount of power going to the left side and less power going to the right side, it is obviously going to pull in a direction. It is not going to want to go straight. And now, electric car manufacturers and big SUVs, the Rivian and the Hummer EV, have these systems where they can independently engage these motors and help you actually move the vehicle around in a way. Like Rivian has the tank turn feature where the car can spin in place on its own by turning the motors at different speeds in each corner. That's fine when you're trying to show off to your friends at the campsite, but you don't want that when you're in your 2,000 horsepower hypercar at the Goodwood hill climb. You don't want that. And that, I think, is what happened here. So the driver took off. You could see the smoke. And then if you watch slowly on the slow motion replay, you can see the driver start to initiate some counter steer into this. And presumably he's already lifted off of the throttle at this point, but it's too late. Also, do we get to call it a throttle because it's an EV? There's no throttle plate in there. There's no... Anyway, I don't know. We got to figure that out still. But that's what happened here, I think. And that's it lends to a engineering sort of, an engineering challenge with electric cars. And this ties into my more of a rant that I did last week about the electric cars at the Pikes Peak hill climb that I saw, which is the logistics you need to do it. The teams, the programmers, not just race mechanics and engineers, the computer software programmers. This could have been a software issue in some way or another that caused this to happen. And it just proves again that electric race cars are not ready for the grassroots. The big manufacturers playing with them right now. So, hey, don't go anywhere. Kimi and Matt from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery are coming up right here after the break on Automotive ADHD.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Yes, it is. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. I have a really exciting couple of guests for you today. This is really cool. We are talking about off-roading, and we're talking about what happens perhaps when sometimes off-roading doesn't go the way you planned it, at least. Because if it doesn't, you're probably going to be calling these guys. Now, my next guests have played a part in thousands of trail recoveries for a tremendous nonprofit right here in Colorado. It is Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. Kimi McBryde is the organization's public affairs officer, and also joining me is Matt, and I promised I would do my best not to mess up the name, Balazs, owner of On Trail Training. Matt, did I butcher that too bad?
Close enough.
Close enough? Okay, that means I butchered it. Awesome. Well, anyway, Kimi, Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. And it might get confusing with two Matts here on the show. So we'll
That's all right.
it's a good name, by the way. Ask me how I know.
I know.
So let's talk a
Don't
little.
call me Matthew.
Oh, right. Now yours is with two T's, right?
Yes.
Two T's. Okay. I have met the rare Matt with one T, and you got to watch out for those guys. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's something up with them.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk a little bit before we talk about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery, which is it's just a nonprofit, by the way, which when I was looking into this, I found you guys. I think I'd found you guys on your YouTube channel. And I didn't even realize it was a nonprofit until I started doing some digging. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. We need to talk about this on the show. But before we do, Kimi, you first. Give me a little bit of your background and then some of what you do with Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery.
Sure. So I my big kid job, I'm a project manager at a hospital. So lots of logistics and such. I've been an EMT for over 10 years now. So during COVID, I bought my Jeep and wanted something to do. And this seemed like the best way to kind of marry those backgrounds and interests, and connected with the org. And then last year, got more involved and stepped into the PIO role. So all sorts of the social media, going out in the field and capturing some footage and getting to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. And now you're on a radio show here in Southern Colorado, too. Yeah. So it's funny how that works, right?
That's wild. It's, yeah. I was on the news on the East Coast over Christmas randomly. The Today Show called. That was wild. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, and I'm glad you're here. I don't know if I have Today Show numbers, but we'll try. We'll try on that. Now, Matt, I want to ask you as well a little bit about your background too. You do some other work outside of Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. You've got on-trail training. Tell me your background, and then let's go into what on-trail training does.
So my background with this, it started back in summer of 2000. I moved to the Vail Valley. I was beginning a lucrative career as a ski bum. And that summer, I saw a Jeep guide company driving around, and I said, they pay people to go do that. So called them up the next day, and they said, yeah, you've been off-road before? Oh, yeah, grew up west of Pennsylvania. Used to do it all the time. Okay, come on in tomorrow. We'll train you. The guy that trained me had started at the job 2 weeks before me. He knew where the trail was. That was about the extent of my training. Did that for, 12, 13 years. Worked as an owner-operator for a while. Had my own vehicle that I'd subcontract out to a couple of the different guide companies in the valley. Got out of that, and I kind of had this, well, now what moment. I moved down to Evergreen, started a family down here, and had always seen a need for instruction for this stuff. So I wanted to get a little education for myself. I didn't want to just go off of my experience, and, there's a broader world out there. I got hooked up with a group called the International Four-Wheel Drive Trainers Association, I4WDTA. That was started by a guy named Bill Burke, who operates on the Western Slope. We're just celebrating our 20th year this year. I wasn't around for all of them. Bill did a lot of heavy tank recovery in the Army, was doing heavy tow, riding flipped tractor trailers as a job and as a hiking guide on the side. And he would see people out trying to use their winches and have absolutely no idea what they were doing with them. So kind of a little light bulb moment for him, pretty similar to what I had. He started training, and there was no real standard set for it. So he founded the association to, one, have a network of trainers out there that we can all call and have work with us. I have one of them hanging out on my back porch right now as we're talking. He's in from Alabama. And two, to really set a standard and have kind of a collective thought process with this. So we bounce ideas off each other constantly when new products, new techniques come out, all that good stuff. He got together then with a fellow named Chris Cole, who kind of formed the academic half of it. And to become a member, you need to go through what's called a TFC. It's a testing for certification. It's a week-long process that we typically have about a 30% pass rate for. And so it's not a show up, congratulations, here's your certificate. This year we'll have 40 examining instructors for, I think we're at 12 candidates showing up. So you have almost a 4-to-1 ratio of eyes on you. It's a pretty intense week. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year because I get to sit back on the fun side of it. But it's been a really great group to be a part of. I got on-trail training going right about the same time Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery was coming up. And we had our tents next to each other in an event, way back. And kind of started chatting with them, and yeah, we should continue this conversation a little more. It's kind of a real good outlet for what I was offering. They had a great need for it, little peanut butter and jelly. here we are 10 years later.
Wow. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you look at, and we're going to talk about what Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery does, but that makes a ton of sense when you think about the idea of training people to be safe on the trail and recover vehicles safely, because look, anybody can go out and, buy a Jeep, throw a winch on it, and not have any idea what they're doing. And I would even argue that that is amplified now with social media. You get people who want to be an influencer and say, "Oh, I'm a recovery guy. I can go grab a kinetic rope and pull someone out of a ditch. Oh, that makes me a recovery guy," right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah. We wind up fighting a lot of that, and it creates a lot of bad habits and bad practices. I was just on a call last night with some members that are planning a 600-foot recovery of bringing a rolled Jeep down through a scree field to get it back onto the road. And it's missing wheels. It's sitting on its door in a creek right now. And, want to get it out there is, one, keep our people as safe as they can. And two, keep the environment as safe as we can and do as little impact to it as we're out there. But we gotta get in there and do the stuff, or it's gonna stay there and be a part of the landscape.
Right. Now, and of course, we want to preserve the trails, and by preserving the trails, one of that is not leaving derelict vehicles down an embankment off of a trail, too, because you got all sorts of stuff. You got gasoline, oil, coolant, stuff that you don't want in there, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, now, Kimi, I want to ask you here now a little bit specifically about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. What exactly, we touched on it briefly, but give me sort of the elevator speech, in a nutshell, what Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery does and how it started. Because it didn't start out as a nonprofit. It's sort of grown to that from just a sort of a grassroots endeavor, right?
It sure did. So, Matt, you can chime in too, since you were around when this kicked off and I was not. This is our 10th year anniversary in August. We're really excited that actually all of the founders are flying in for our banquet. Matt, you better be there.
Yeah.
And so it'll be really fun to get everybody back in the same room. But it was started by a couple guys who saw the need, right? Lots of, and this is like 2013, 2014, when Facebook and social media kind of became a thing.
Okay, and Kimi, I ran myself out of time. Let me have you hold that thought. We're going to get to that right after the break. We're going to get the background of Colorado 4x4 and Recovery, and then we're going to talk about being safe on the trail. And you don't want to miss this. Don't miss a minute of this show. We're going to be right back here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere. And you are listening to the Automotive ADHD show, heard around Southern Colorado on the radio. Several great radio stations to catch this show on, and as a podcast around the world. Hey, remember, you can also send your car sounds into the show. I play listener-submitted car sounds right here. Now, before the break, I was talking to some great folks from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. Matt, Kimi, welcome back to Automotive ADHD.
Thanks.
Let's talk a little bit here. Now, Kimi, before the break, I was asking you about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery's background and how it started. Let's pick up right there.
Yeah. So 2013, 2014-ish, Facebook was kind of becoming a thing, a big social media platform, right? And so a couple guys saw the need to kind of form a Good Samaritan group. They started seeing kind of an uptick in niche, kind of like Matt's training. There's a niche for this for sure, to go out and do vehicle recovery and rescue these people who broke down on trail, had an oopsie on trail, accidentally rolled, right? And so that became kind of a Good Samaritan Facebook group. And how long after, Matt, did we switch into nonprofit status?
It was about a 3, maybe 4-year process. Yeah, the first one was Craig Lehman, he was the guy that got everything together. He'd gotten a buddy of his had broken down on a trail called Red Cone. And by the time Craig and, they got enough people together to get up there, they got to the truck and it was stripped tires were gone, winch was gone, radio, lights.
Wow.
Everything that could be unbolted was gone. So that was kind of the, hey, there's a better way to do this. We can get people up there quicker. And yeah, in the early days, it was just a Facebook page and, hey man, I got stuck on this trail. Who's going to come get me? And throw their hands up. And that led to some not so great recoveries. And that was about when Craig and Matt Ratter and I had gotten in contact, and that's when things started going in a little more positive and professional direction with the org.
Organized.
Yeah, a little bit. It was very, very Wild West in those days. I had an admin threaten to kick me off the page for saying, "Yeah, you shouldn't really be doing that way." That was different time and place.
Well, and you've moved from that now to being the only 4x4 group recognized by Colorado Search and Rescue. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, we cover the entire state, so which is a blessing and a curse, right? We have almost 140 active members, but the bulk of our population is along the Front Range, so that leads to some pretty long drive times out to some of the rural spots. Which are often where some of the really amazing trails are, like the one Matt was talking about that we're working on to go get. That roll Jeep in a couple weeks is going to be a long, strategic, pretty intensely planned recovery, just for orchestration of bodies and logistics, and then the actual recovery itself. So we've had almost 800 members rotate through in the last 10 years, which is wild. And like I said, we cover the entire state. So we are all volunteer and donate our time and energy and all of our resources too. Kind of unlike a traditional search and rescue team, right? We focus on the vehicles, but we also don't get county and state funding for this. We have the support of CSAR and some amazing partnerships with the U.S. Forest Service, various county law enforcement officers. But we're kind of our own little niche and nobody quite knows what to do with us.
But the fact is you guys are there and you are there to help when things go sideways or in some cases literally upside down on the trail. You guys are the people that come out, keep safe folks, get the vehicles, recovered and all of the above. How can people, you said you've got somewhere you've had 800 members kind of go through the organization. How can people get involved? If we got a guy listening right now who says, hey, I've got some good equipment and I'm willing to go get some training and get certified with you guys, how can I get involved with that?
We keep an eye on our social media. We post out when we do new member sessions. So twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, we'll do a new member cohort. And so that entails a couple meetings. I think our director of training or former director of field ops, Brant, does a ton of work and a ton of hands-on with the entire cohort. They do 10 ride-alongs with us in the field. So 3 are kind of going and just observing. 3 are like trail driving and they bring a vehicle and implement that. And then the last 4, I believe, are like hands-on. All right, you're in charge. How should we do this? Let's talk through it. Let's kind of teamwork our way through this recovery and give them that onus. And part of that training is everybody takes Recovery 1 and Recovery 2 with Matt and on-trail training. So that's something that leadership and the org values, that education and credentialing and doing things safely and slowly. We get a lot of guys who come up to us at events and they're like, where's your YouTube channel? I want to see like the cool, fast things you do. And we're like, well, it's actually like really boring sometimes. What we condensed to like a 3-minute clip was like a 12-hour day. And we cut it to the 4 seconds where you see the vehicle move on the winch, but you don't see all the rigging and conversations and teaching and discussions that go in, even down to like what gear we bring. Matt does a ton with us about the quality of gear and what you're looking for and kind of our minimum standards for what we do, how we operate. Everybody's seen the social media video of the guy who put a kinetic rope around the tow ball and tried to yank and the ball went backwards. through the windshield. Like, we don't do that. We don't play that game. There's a lot of small things that you wouldn't think would be like dangerous. And we spend the time with Matt and Brian Lott, who's another certified I4WDTA trainer, to go through those and talk about it and really learn why we do the things we do and why we're so slow and strategic. And like, it's kind of like, so again, I come from EMS, but if you ever work with medevac, it's 3 to go, 1 to say no. So it's that whole team thing of like, we're all on the same page here for safety. This is what we're doing. Everybody back up. And it's definitely a collaborative team approach. And we don't really have a place for the cowboys right now. We're not the Wild West anymore.
Again, my guests are Matt and Kimi from Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. And real quick, Kimi, how can people find out more about Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery? And perhaps what's that phone number, too, if we just want to throw that out there if they need to call it?
Yeah. So the phone number is 720-722-1204. That is the best way to reach us. We do have to do a phone intake to get a full grasp of the situation, kind of like when you call 911. They need to know all the details so we know to send the right people, gear to the right spot. And then our website is CO4X4RN as in Nancy R.org. All of our social media is on there, and tributes to our partners, some of our history. Our org historian has written a very detailed blog series for us. If you want to know more about where we've come from, why we've chosen to go this route. And there is a Facebook group out there that is Colorado 4x4 Rescue, and that is not us. We are Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery.
And Matt, one last thing from you too. How can people find your company as well, On Trail Training? How can they get that extra layer of knowledge on what they need to do?
Best ways right through ontrailtraining.com. You can register for classes directly on there. The next round of classes will be available the beginning of August on the website, and those will be for September and October, and then that'll round out the season for me. So
now we're going to keep this discussion going on the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about trail safety and preparedness so you can avoid a situation where you got to call these guys. Find that right here after the show. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever fine shows and mine are downloaded. I'll talk to you back here on the radio next week.